Returning now to the purge at the Pentagon, all in the name of President Trump's crackdown on diversity in the federal government. Our next guest says, quote, the full-throttled attack on black leadership, dismantling of civil rights protections, imposition of unjust anti-DEI regulations, and unprecedented historical erasure across the Department of Defense is a clear sign of a new Jim Crow being propagated by our commander-in-chief. Joining us now is Richard Brookshire. He is the CEO and co-founder of the Black Veterans Project. That is a nonprofit working to eliminate racial inequities among uniformed service members. Richard, those were some strong words. And earlier we heard Congressman James Clyburn also equate what the Trump administration is doing to a return to Jim Crow. What do you think the administration's goal is here with all of this purging?
I think what we're experiencing in real time is a backlash to the fact that two black men were at the highest positions of leadership in the Department of Defense. During the Biden administration, there was strong pushback within the Department of Defense. So it's no surprise that now with the Trump administration, you are seeing a concerted effort to try to undermine black leadership. I think it's important to note that last year was the 75th anniversary of the desegregation of the armed forces. But in 2017, there was the only time that the DOD had released an internal survey on race relations, and it said that about 1/3 of black troops were experiencing racial discrimination and harassment in service. In 2020, Military Times did a survey that said that half of minority troops were seeing ideological-driven racism in the ranks. And what we have now being done by this administration is a full-throttle denial that any of that has taken place, that any of that is actually continuing to take place, and we know that not to be true.
So you have, the removal of black leaders at the DOD that you were talking about, and also the pulling down of pages honoring minorities, who are war heroes, frankly. Now, DOD officials contend that this effort is about highlighting war heroes for their patriotism and their dedication to the warfighting mission rather than their diverse backgrounds. And they say that these DEI policies divide the force, erodes unit cohesion, and interferes with the service's core warfighting mission. Are you willing to consider, their point of view on this, or do you think they're just completely wrong?
I think they're completely wrong. I think history has shown an over-reliance on black communities, minority communities, when America is losing its wars. And so therefore, and then there's also oftentimes efforts to try to marginalize black troops in the highest ranks of the military, to marginalize their existence at specialty training schools, to deny them opportunity. And when we talk about documenting the history and legacy of that, these folks are thriving in spite of the racism that has been propagated by our country and within the Department of Defense. And it is important. It is as important to our kind of national fabric, our national identity, to understand the ways in which they had to overcome additional barriers to be able to contribute to the warfighting mission. I think that this misnomer that diversity, equity, and inclusion is a divisive topic. No, what's divisive is the capitulation and maintenance of a white supremacist structure within the body of the military that our nation hasn't wanted to contend with in a real substantive way. And now we have a fascist leader coming in and completely dismantling all of the gains that have been made over decades to try to foster some level of equity within the system.
Well, obviously, you have some very strong opinions there, right? The administration would say that this is just leveling the playing field. When you talk about the white supremacy structure there, tell us specifically what you mean by that.
I mean, like I said earlier, when you have internal data coming from the Department of Defense, and they've never wanted to release the race-based survey that they conduct every 2 years. They only released it one time in 2017. And it said that a full 1/3 of black service members were experiencing discrimination in the ranks. They are now actively dismantling the only mechanism put in place under the EEO, the Equal Employment Opportunity Provisions, where they might find a chance to be able to adjudicate those claims of racial discrimination. That is something that this administration is choosing to do.
Before we let you go, is there anything else you want to add?
I I think that we are at a nexus point, a critical point in this country. I think the military is often where we see, just like the military was one of the first institutions to desegregate, I think that it's also going to be the first place that there's a reason why Black vets, Black service members are on the front lines of these attacks. It is because the military has always been used as a mechanism for what will ultimately happen in our society. And if we don't take credence to what's happening now within the Department of Defense and the actions that they're taking at the inception of this administration, we are in for a serious amount of trouble. And a new Jim Crow is certainly within the realm of possibility.
Richard Brookshire, thank you for sharing your viewpoint on this story. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me.